Good evening, friends. We have a humdinger of a project on, not on the go, but on the cards, definitely. A lad I met 4 years ago. I think I sold him a guitar 4 years ago. Got into contact with him recently. And he bought his dream guitar in 2005. It's a Gibson Les Paul Standard. Very nice looking guitar, if you like this sort of thing. Good weight to it. 2005, it may not be weight relieved. I think we started weight relief in 2005. But he says his favourite guitar and he doesn't play it. He's out of love with it, he doesn't play it. It plays horrible. Just nothing right about it. It doesn't sound right, the neck don't play right, it doesn't sound right, the pickups aren't right, this, that and the other. Nah. I'm not one for slagging people off, especially people in this business, luthiery and guitar teching, but this is not the first guitar I've had in that has been to some guys, either guitar doctor or something, Dr. Guitar, I don't know who he is. I think he's Nottingham based or somewhere around there, I'm not sure, I don't care, I'm not bothered. He's some old guy, and what he did to this doesn't, you don't want to bring it up, but apparently this is a brand new guitar doctor guy, jabbed this 3 times with soldering iron, knackered that up, knackered all the wiring up, and didn't do a very good fret level, from what I'm told. This, I don't know if this guitar, I think it's a really old guy. But anyway, it's not the first guitar I've had come from that place, and this one is another one. And the guy's bought it in and says, Vic, I used to love this guitar, nah, I just don't play it. It's just put away and I never play it, it's horrible. He says, whatever it needs doing, do it. If you have to refret it, cut the nibs off, refret it, gut the electrics, redo all the electrics. And he's also sent me some pickups to put in it. Now these pickups are, what we've done, we've lost them. Straight away, not going to mess about. Pickups he's sent are Joe Bonamassa, custom shop, 500 quid a pair. Sticking them in for him. Now I've said we might get away with fret level, even though the frets are pretty flat. But one thing I don't like about these frets is they only come up to the nibs, which means they're inside the binding. It doesn't give you a lot of play. He wants me to refret it. I said, well, if I'm refretting it, I'm going to have to put you a new nut on there. We'll put a new bone nut on there. I'll refret it, we'll cut the nibs off, I'll re-radius everything, we'll refret it, I'll redo all the electrics, put your brand new bone nut on there. You're going to be looking at 350 quid. He says, fine, not a problem. Just do what needs doing. So he's seen my videos, he's seen what neck and fret work I do, especially neck restoration, twisted and bent necks. I'm a specialist. I do repair and take on guitars that no one else will touch. The last Les Paul I did in 1970, was it 73? The 1973 custom I did with a bent and twisted neck. No one in Britain would touch it. Even the specialist down in Southampton, Southampton Way, the Gibson specialist down there, they wouldn't touch it. We didn't want to have nothing to do with it. I repaired that, not a problem. It did cost the owner, I think I charged him £700 when all said and done. That had a refret and everything, but that put another £2,000 value on the guitar. So that was great. So I will take on anything. He says he thinks the neck's bent and twisted, whatever. I says, don't worry about that, we'll sort it out. That neck looks fine to me. There's no twist in that neck. There's a little bit of relief in there, but I'm sure the truss rod works all right. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to appraise this guitar. So without further ado, I'm going to do this all now, on camera, live. In fact, what I'm going to do is, no, I'll keep it running. I hate having to slag people off, but it's this guitar doctor, whoever he is, I don't know who he is, I don't give a shit. I don't care about all the luthiers, I care about me. I care about my standard of work, and my standard is up there. I know it is. You know, I try and give the best service I possibly can. I don't go around slagging people off, but if people are too shit to be doing this job, they shouldn't be doing it. You know, so that's just my opinion. It's not the first time I've had one of his guitars. Same with Crazy Trainer. We're now shut down, by the way. Them arseholes from Annesley, who I had a lot of trouble with in the past. They've gone completely. You know, end of the day, the cream rises to the top, and I'm still here, and no one else in this area is around here anymore for miles around. So, you know, end of the day, there's a reason I have a 4-month waiting list as well. But that said, let's concentrate on this guitar and nip these strings off. We're going to check the frets, and what I want to do specifically is I want to see how much meat these frets have got on. Now, my big problem with nibs and bound guitars with nibs is your frets only come to the edge of a fingerboard and edge of the wood. We don't go to the edge of a neck. So you're losing nearly 4 millimeters of playing space. So as reluctant as I am to say go and refret it, the guy's already said let's look at the long term. You know, if I do a fret level, how long is it going to last? And I said probably 2 or 3 years. He says, but what about a refret? I'm saying 40 odd years. The reason I say 40 years is the fret wire I use. I use 25% nickel silver, the hardest fret wire, nickel silver fret wire on the planet, made by Symptoms. I've been using it for 2.5 years now. I've recommended it to some luthier friends and guitar tech friends of mine, and they have converted to it and they've started using it as well. 25% nickel silver is really hard. It's going to last a lot longer than your standard 12%, which this is, or the 18% which I've been using for years. And it's not that much more, it is more difficult to work, but not that much more difficult. And the good thing about it is it's no more expensive than standard nickel silver fret wire. So if you want to give it a try, Symptoms nickel's 25% nickel silver. It's called Symptoms Elite. And it's all I use. So it's the one I use the most. So I'm going to be using that on here if I do refret it. Now looking at the frets, the problem with frets on these with nibs is the frets tend to be flatter. So you don't really get that crown, you get more of a flat fret. But the owner has said, I'm looking at long term. I want it to be, he says, you're my only hope, really. He says, I've seen your videos, you're my only hope. I want to love this guitar again, so whatever it needs doing, please do it. E is more keen to go for a refret than a fret level. Now I've said there's probably enough meat there to do a fret level, which I still think there is. But I'm just going to get my calipers out. I'm going to move the camera in a minute. We're losing the light, by the way. It's cracking on a bit. It's gone 8 o'clock. I've done a shift and a half at Royal Mail today. My walk is 10 miles and I've done another half a walk, so I've done about 14 miles walking today. I've done my walk and half another walk as a postman today, which I've been doing more or less every day for the past month or so. But let's just get these bits off the guitar. What I want to do is measure how tall these frets are. So I'm going to move the camera. We're going to keep it rolling. I'm not going to do stock shots. You know me, I like to work live. I like to do live videos. Even though I don't do live videos as such, I like to keep everything continuous. That's why my videos are a little bit unprofessional, but I'm not worried about editing and all that crap. So let's have a look, see where we are. Like I say, I'm losing the light. I'm going to be done. Once I've appraised this guitar, we're going to crack on. So I can measure the height of these frets with this caliper I got from Stumac. Great thing. Let's turn it on. We're on inches, not to be on inches, we want to be on millimetres. Millimetres. And what we do is with this bit here, we're just going to level it off. Get it level. Once that's level, we set it to 0. So I'll 0 it out, and this is going to give me, it's going to tell me the height of the fret. So let's see where we are. We'll just wang it on there, and that is saying 1.36 high. We've certainly got, I'll 0 it again. We've certainly got enough meat on there to level these frets and not do a refret. So let's 0 it out again. I'll turn it off. 0 it. So we're at 0 there. So if I go and take a measure now of the fret, 1.26. Again, let's 0 it. It's always a bit awkward to do this. We're at 0 again. We'll measure this one. 1.26. So we've got plenty of meat on those frets. So it doesn't need a refret. Enough meat on there, but if it wants a refret, so we're back to 0, we're going to check at this end. .31. Now, once they're down to about 0.8, I'm 0.9 millimeters, 0.8 millimeters, but there's no way I would offer to level the frets because you won't have enough meat on them to crown. But there's certainly enough meat on those frets to level them. Now again, The frets are only as wide as the wood. They don't go where the nibs are. You can't use a nib as a fret. So I understand why he wants a refret. So I'm going to ask him what he wants to do. End of the day, I think he's going to want me to change the nut for a bone nut. I'm not sure that is a bone nut. There's always a problem. It might be a bone nut. It's still got the lacquer over the nut itself. Anyway, I'll have to go and check the specs on this. It's still got the lacquer over it. So let's cut round the lacquer, which will not be a problem. We can keep this nut on. We don't have to change the nut. So I'm thinking if we just do a refret, we've got an ebony board, that's going to chip out. We're going to have to repair the chips. So we're looking at £200 for refret. We're looking at £25 for the fret wire. You're going to look at extra 25 quid for working through the ebony and repairing the ebony. I may even charge 50 quid for that, depends how many cracks I get. Got to cut the nibs off. So we're going to be looking at about 250, definitely 250 quid, maybe 275 for a refret. Then we've got all the electrics to do. So we're going to be looking, ballpark figure, 300, let's say 325 quid or roundabouts for that with the setup, not including the nut being changed. I could possibly get the nut changed and we'd be looking at a ballpark figure around about 350 quid. It all depends what this nut is made of. Problem with removing a nut, I don't like removing nuts that are glued in and from the factory, because you've always got a chance of chipping around the nut area. And you can cave them in on themselves by sawing them in half that way, but you still might get a little bit of chipping around here. So I'm a little bit reluctant to remove the nut. I'm going to go and find out what material it is made of. It could be bone. I want to thought it be plastic. Let's get to tap. It's got to be an easy way of telling whether it's bone or not. I've got the teeth around it, I know. So I can scrape into it. Don't think that's bone. Don't think it is a bone knot. Anyway, let me go and do some digging and let me go and talk to the owner of the guitar, and we'll decide what we're doing. So friends, just been on the phone to Aaron. He is agreeing with what I think. I think, end of the day, to get the wider frets on there a bit more advantageous. So we are going to refret it. We're going to remove the nibs. We're going to take these frets out. We're going to refret it. We're going to replace the nut. We're going to put a bone nut in there. I'm going to gut the electrics, going to completely redo the electrics. If there's any pots need changing, we'll change those over. And we are going to install the Joe Bonamassa Custom Shop pickups. So this is going to be a beautiful project. It's going to be a nice big one. I'm going to take my time with it. I'm going to enjoy doing it. And you're going to come on that journey with me. So stay tuned. Back with this guitar. Now first let me apologise for, I've lost a big chunk of video, not just off this guitar but off quite a few other guitars as well. I had a problem with my hard drive upstairs on my main computer, and I've lost a load of videos. So I've lost a big chunk of what I've done on this guitar, and I've had it back clamped, G-clamped up, and I've heated the neck over a long period of time to get it straight. And I've had to clamp in different areas, and because I didn't want to heat it up too much and scorch any of the inlays like can happen if you use too much heat or you use a clothes iron, what have you. I've just been using a hairdryer, and I built a frame around it, heated the cylinder with the hairdryer, just let the hairdryer do the work, just kept moving the clamp, moving the clamp, moving the clamp. And I've got the neck more or less, got around about 97% straight. I've got a quarter turn on the truss rod, and the neck is now dead straight, which is fantastic, because it means we can refret this without a problem. Check where we are there. That neck is dead straight, and there's just a quarter turn on the truss rod. To prove that, I'll just knock it back a quarter of a turn, and you see it's now loose. To show it's loose, I'll just go dirt, 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 dirt. So you can see the truss rod is loose. So if we bring it just to nip it up, I'm going to turn it. There you go, that's just nipped on, so I'll give it a 1/4 turn, remove, and the neck is now dead straight. So what I'm going to do is, I don't mind having a quarter turn to bring it to straightness. Ideally, I would like it completely straight with no turn on the truss rod. But a quarter turn is well inside decent parameters. It gives us lots of room for manoeuvrability and adjustment with just a quarter of a turn to get the neck dead straight. But now it is dead straight. I'm going to remove the frets, Going to get the nut out, which is probably going to be the most difficult job. And we're going to get this all clamped up on the neck jig, and we're going to sand the neck dead straight. I might even sand it straight with the truss rod loose. I don't know yet. I don't mind having a quarter of a turn, leaving it like that, because it means we've got plenty, because we're using a higher fret wire, we've got plenty of room for manoeuvrability. It gives us plenty of leeway either way, and having high frets as well is going to make the job a whole lot better. I've got to get that phone, so I'll come back shortly. So I've had to resort to the long-winded but safest method, and that is to get a file in there and to file away all the excess bone nut, which I've just about done. It's a lot of work, but it's all about getting a decent shelf to put the new nut in. I don't quite have a file the right width for the slot, so I'm having to work with a thinner file and take my time. Like so, but I'm just about there. It's all about creating a good shelf for the new bone and getting rid of all of the old bone. I can remove some of the excess or the last bits just by scraping away. The thing is with this, you don't want to go too deep. You don't want to create a bigger hole than you need. But there you go. Just about done. I'm just tidying it up. Once it's tidied up, we have to do a little bit of finishing, touching up on the edges. But that won't be a problem. You won't know once the new nut is in. Yep. Okay, fret friends, we are going to be removing frets, and I've took one out, and I should have the video rolling, because it'd probably be great to show you how not to remove frets. And I thought I'd just take one out without using any heat, and the chips are remarkable. So many chips. So I'm just going to take my fret pullers here and just nip that nib off, because we are removing all the nibs. And it's just chips all the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue these chips back in. But I will be repairing all the chips anyway. But what we're going to do is we're not going to just pull them out. I thought we may be a chance we can just get away without using heat, but we're not. We're going to pull them properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab me a little super glue. What's it here? Because we are really chipped at this end. Not really matters. I'll be repairing them anyway. So we're going to stick one of these on, the super glue, and just going to drop some glue under these chips. And we'll pop them back in place. So no great shakes, they will pop straight back into place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we should remove frets. Right, okay, that one's in there. For any of these, they will stay. Just going to pop these back down. Anything that doesn't stay will be fine. We'll fill in anyway. I will be showing you at a later date on this actual video how we repair a chip fingerboard anyway. So I'm not concerned that if some of these don't stick down properly. Super glue is rubbish. I hate super glue with a passion. I don't think there's anything I dislike more about my guitar work is it's having to use super glue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the best way to remove frets, especially when you've got an ebony board like this. Ebony is an absolute swine. It will chip. You will not be able to avoid ebony chipping. So what we are going to do is we're going to take, I do have an adapted soldering iron here. The soldering iron's rubbish, I was going to throw it away, but I've adapted a piece. I'll put a groove in there to go over the frets, and what we're going to do is we're going to heat the frets like so, and hopefully we might get a puff of steam which will tell us that the glue's melted. Still trying to hold that down with super glue, look, it's not sticking. So I'm just going to heat this fret. And hopefully got enough heat in there to remove it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take my fret puller, just get underneath, and then now we've got underneath, I'm going to take the chip stopper from Stumac, this is. And we're going to slide this in as we remove the fret, and it should stop us chipping. And that one's come out really clean, look, no chips. So that's how we do remove them properly. Just show you the chip stopper again. There you go. See how that works? We just slide it under the fret as we're pulling it out. I don't think that super glue's dried under there yet. It's just crap stuff. Cheap rubbish. Alright, it has stuck down now. So yeah, removing frets, again, really easy. Like I said, I put a groove in that bit, bent it over so it's easy to get over the frets. So I'm just gonna get some heat in there. This will save me a lot of time later because I won't have to repair off as many chips as I normally would do. In fact, I probably won't have hardly any. It's worth just spending the time with the soldering iron, just making sure you get enough heat in there, because that's going to melt any glue that's holding the frets in. And when we come to lifting, we're not going to chip. So if this takes me an hour longer than normal, that's fine. So all we're going to do is fret puller, get right under the fret at the edge like so, get our chip stopper and just come across the fret, and again, no chip in there, just beautiful. I do have another fret puller, probably a little better one. This is from Guitars and Woods in Portugal, a company I no longer use. Everyone knows my history with Guitars and Woods. Great piece of kit this though, and this will just remove those nibs a little bit better, just so. We'll put new frets in, you're not going to have anything in the way there. So that's it, so I think these frets are going to come out really easily now. I may as well show you how I'm going to clean the slots as well. We can't just put frets in there with the old glue in there. So we're going to need to clean out the slots. I do have a specialist tool for doing exactly that, which I'm going to get out in a minute. Just take this one fret out. But again, take your time with this. There's no rush. A little bit warming off. That's all because I've got some heat in there. I'm not getting any chips, look. So, how do we clean out these slots? I do have a special little saw somewhere. There it is, by Hosco, Japan. And that's it. And it's got two blades. And it's just, all you do is you go inside the binding, and you're just going to go ever so gently, just backwards and forwards. Clean out that slot. That's already clean. Nip off that nib there, and this side. And that is already for another fret. What we need to do also is check that it's deep enough to accept a new fret. And to find that, I've got this brand new piece of kit here. I've not even taken it out of the packet yet. I do have a couple of these. I thought I'd lost one, so I ordered another, then I found my original. So let's just get this out. I do believe we're 12-inch radius, so we're just going to look for where the 12 is. There's 10 to 14 just there. This again has got the depth slot on there. And if we can get it deep enough in. And there you go, and that's saying we are deep enough to accept a fret. Beautiful, right on the line, so that's fantastic. So there you go. I'm going to remove them frets. We'll come back, we'll clean up any areas that need cleaning up. We'll sand everything down. We're going to sand the neck. We're going to re-radius the neck anyway and sand it. I'll show you all these things when I come back, when I've got all the frets out. And we'll get it all prepped, ready for the new frets. Okay, fret friends, we're setting up my neck jig. For those of you who don't know what this is a copy of a Stumac or the Dan Erlewine neck jig. We've got supporting steel rods here, going to support the neck of the guitar. We've got some upside down table feet which we can alter and change to balance this piece of decking here, which is all padded out, which will hold the guitar body. We'll strap the guitar to this. Just turn this one around a little bit, set it up. And we'll have the guitar strapped in so it doesn't move. Once we've got the neck, the body set on there, we're going to set the neck dead straight, supported underneath by the steel rods which are locking. We can lock these into place, like so. And that'll give us a dead straight neck with the guitar strapped in, dead straight neck, ready to work on. So what we're going to do is we're going to re-radius the fingerboard. We're going to sand the neck straight anyway and level. Just to give us a great surface to refret the guitar. So I'm going to get the guitar, I'm going to get it on there, and I'll come back and show you when it's set up. And what I'm doing at the moment is I'm making various tweaks to the supports under here, just so we can get the guitar on here and the neck dead straight with this beam here, because once it's strapped in, we've got the neck straight and level, and I mean level this way as well. We can work on the neck, and everything we do will be much easier because we'll have the neck straight. So taped up the guitar, covered parts I don't need to be exposed to any filings or anything. So what I'm looking at is lining this guitar up, lining the neck up with these supporting rods underneath, and making sure that we are straight. Well, we're not perfectly straight, we are dipping down a bit on that edge, but I don't mind that because we are straight with the beam. And as long as these come up in the middle, okay, I need to come across just a little bit. I will be strapping the guitar in by means of some ratchet straps momentarily. Check that one there. Just check everything's pretty much central. Just need to come across a little bit there. Okay, that's central, that's central, that's central. We've got everything just about central there. And that's looking pretty good. So that's where I want to be locking the guitar. So I'm going to grab my straps. Remember where I put them. Couple of heavy duty ratchet straps. Some little supporting pieces for the edges of the guitar. Just to protect the guitar when we're placing the straps. Again, not rocket science. Fabulous piece of kit, this jig. I looked at the Stumac one, and the Stumac one was expensive. It was going to cost me £600–700 to get it over here. And then they upgraded it and made it better. And though it is an impressive piece of kit, it just became too expensive. You're looking at about £800–900 now. And I thought, you know, someone had made their own version of it. So I thought I'd have a go at making it. I made this, it cost me. Did not cost a lot. It cost, what did it cost? It Costs about £110. It works just as well. It's more or less identical to the original Stumac Erlewine neck jig. My friend Danny Lint out in Leicestershire, he's got the original Stumac wooden one. So anyway, let's see if I can get these straps right around. I'm probably doing this wrong way around. I'm not thinking it straight at the moment. I think we might be good. Okay, I want to be there. I want a little bit of slack. I do want a little bit of slack just to get these underneath properly, just so I can support the guitar properly. I don't want to twist too many there, so let's just. There you go. Right. There you go, that's where I need to be. Just make sure we're all supported and we're not digging into the guitar itself, which we're not. You could use, I suppose, in a way, you could use cardboard for this. This is a piece of felt that is, it's an ironing board cover innards, I believe. That's as tight as I want that to be there. So let's get that underneath, and now we're just going to check the lining. That is perfect. That is perfect. So we're nice and square. We'll do exactly the same again over this part. Grab me a couple of these. And this is going nowhere. It's solid, it's bolted to the bench, so it gives us a nice solid platform to work on the neck. There's a lot of work to be done on the neck. I can only work in the daytime because of where the guitar is placed, because we're getting dark. What time are we now? It's too dark to work in here right now. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. So I'll be working on this in the day. Night time I'll be working on other projects on the other bench, on the night bench over there. So I'm going to be looking at fitting another clamp on a ratchet. I think we'll go between the knobs. I'll start the ratchet off, but leave it loose enough so I can get these underneath, like so. On there. To get underneath these knobs, just a little. I can't see what's the matter, it'll find a level. There you go, we're not going to get any tighter than that. So, we have the guitar clamped tight to there, that is not going anywhere, nice and solid. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at getting the neck straight. So what I'm going to do first is take my not straight edge, and we're going to see how straight the neck is. Okay, we do have a little bit of relief in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the truss rod. Don't want to go any more than a quarter of a turn. I'm not going to straighten it anymore. We've already straightened the neck once. I'm not going to treat it to any more heat or anything. I'm just going to see how much we've got. That truss rod is loose, as you can see. So let's just get it. There you go. That's just now. That's touching to not loose. That's just nipped. So a little bit of relief in there. Not a lot. We're going to go a quarter of a turn. So from there, we're going to go to there. That's a quarter of a turn. Just let that neck settle a little bit. Oh, it's just about straight. It's not perfectly straight yet. And that's just settling. I'm I'm going to go another 1/8 of a turn, so from there to about where my thumb is. So if I go just about there, that's as much as I want to go, and I think that is going to be just about straight. Right, we've taken this end up just a little bit, so it's a little bit over straight. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it off a 1/16. We're going to leave it there. And that, my friends, a tiny bit of relief here, but we're level there, we're level there, we're level up to here. That is straight enough. What I'm going to do is I'm going to re-radius the board in that position. Like I said, we're not going to get it dead straight just by what we've done, by softening everything and by using heat like we've done. But that neck is just about as straight as I can get it. We probably have a 1/10 of a millimetre relief around about the 11th fret. I'm going to sand that out. We are going to set the neck dead straight here, and we're going to sand it all out. I'm going to re-radius the whole board and the neck. It's still going to give us plenty of adjustment on the truss rod, but we're going to be working with a straight neck. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tighten all these up. These are supporting beams underneath, and this is just going to hold the neck where I want it to be held. Very happy with that. And then set this, tighten it down. And all we're going to do with this, underneath we do have another way to alter by means of, let me just sort this out, I need to pull this right through. That's better. By means of an adjustable, this is adjustable underneath. We're just going to, not going to pull that too tight, we're just going to hold that there. I do have an adjuster underneath here, which will tighten this bolt. I could just straighten this neck again, but what I want to do is just make sure we're staying straight. Right, that has pulled it down, I don't want it pulling down. Let's see where we are. I'm not even going to use that pulling down there, I'm just going to set it as it is right there. That's fine, I'm not going to move that. All I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on underneath. And we have that neck now set level. So what I can do now is I can re-radius the whole board by getting a 12-inch radius block with sandpaper on there. And we're going to sand it this way. And we're going to re-radius the board. I'm just going to move the camera so you can see a little bit better. Because now you're seeing, there you go. I think we're at a very good angle there. We all know we're on the neck jig. So that's as straight as I can get the neck. It's virtually perfectly straight. There's a tiny bit of relief here, so we're going to sand all that out. But quite a bit of work to do. We need to sand down these edges of the nibs anyway. So while I get everything set up, I'm not going to be doing anything tonight. I'm going to be doing it tomorrow. We're losing the light here already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start another project on another bench, on another guitar. And this is one we're going to come back to. So there may not be enough light for you guys to see, but there is enough light for me to work. So I've already been across with a couple of passes of 240 grit sandpaper on a 12-inch radius beam, and it's just a matter of me persevering with this and getting the neck straight. Now it's going to take a fair bit of work. I dare say I could have gone with some 120 grit, maybe even some 80 grit. I do have another 12-inch beam, I think with paper on with a more coarse grit, so I may actually change over to that in a little while. But what I'm really looking at doing is just smoothing off everything and getting this neck straight. Well, I mean, it's more or less straight anyway. I just want it perfectly straight want to get rid of this trough, so I'm going to remove a bit of material at this end and a little bit at this end. But this is also going to clear up these areas for the new fret, so I won't have to repair that many chipped areas apart from this first fret down here. But I mean, this should be straightening up pretty nicely. That is pretty good. Not far off straight, perfectly straight at all. Let's see where we are there. Yeah, that is looking really good. Bit more work to do. But this is something I'm going to do over the next 24 hours or so. I mean, that would take frets as it is, because the level is going to be the tops of the frets, not the actual wood itself. I'm going to keep going. Get this nice and smooth. We are removing material, as you can see. Sometimes I'll just turn the beam around 180 degrees, just do the opposite direction. We're pretty close to where we need to be. I will be sawing out these slots again with the small saw I showed you earlier, just so we know that we're going to take the new frets. The frets will be precision cut to perfect width, and we'll have an overlap. We'll remove the tang so the tang sits inside the binding. We'll have an overlap over the binding, bits we can snip off a little bit later on. So I'm going to crack on with this, do a bit more work on this, get it all prepped, ready for the new frets, and I'll come back with an update either later or tomorrow. Okay guys, I did nip on with the work. I did actually level and straighten the neck today, so I just want to show you where we are. And this is my Veritas Precision Straight Edge. Cost me a lot of money a few years ago. This is precision straight, made in Canada, and I have the truss rod loose. Show it's loose. There's the Allen wrench. There's loose. That's just nipping it onto a little bit of tightness there. So let's just show again. That's loose. That's just nipped on there. There you go. And the neck may look dead straight to you. It's not. There's a very, very tiny gap under this area here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it about 1/8 of a turn, like so. So I've turned that about that much on an arc, and that neck is now dead straight, and that is perfect for refretting. And that was just with 1/8 of a turn. So there you go, that's loose, that's nipped. So that would be, if you're looking at a clock face, that would be about 10 o'clock. We're going to bring it up to 12 o'clock and that neck is dead straight. That's fantastic because it needs hardly any adjustment at all to get the neck straight now. Now this neck was really bent when I got it in the workshop, so spent a lot of time getting the neck straight, but it is straight. We've not had to remove a lot of material from the fingerboard. A little bit thinner at this edge and this edge. You can see on the binder it's a bit fatter in the middle, but that's always the compromise we have to make when we're doing such an intensive straighten. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. That's just about ready for new frets. I've still got to cut the slots. I've got a few chips to repair, but once that's done we can start getting some frets in. So still a lot of work to be done on this fingerboard before we can get the new frets in, and what I'm doing today is taking my small Hosco saw and I'm clearing out the fret slots. And I've done these first 6 or 7, and it's just a matter of getting in there, clearing the slots of any old glue and anything that got in there, just so we can get the new frets in. It'll create a nice clean channel. What we don't want to do is cut over the binding, which can happen. You've got to be really careful. So get in there, let the saw do the work, don't go mental. Nice and steady. If there's any old glue in there, we're getting that out now. And what I'm going to need to do also is, I don't know if you can see from where you are, but there are chipped areas that are going to stick out beyond the thickness of the fret wire. So if we do get any of those areas, like I've got one there, I've got a few on this fret here, I've got one there, we are going to fill these in with some rosewood dust. Got a chip appearing there, which we'll probably glue back in, but we'll fix that anyway. And that's going to take us a while because we don't need any gaps between the fret and the fingerboard. So that's going to take a while. It always happens with ebony boards. You are not going to pull frets out of an ebony board and not chip it. I absolutely guarantee it. I've been doing this for years and they just always chip. So a lot of work to be done. I'm going to do this over days whilst working other guitars around it, because we are getting up towards December. Once we hit December, I'll be closing the shop until January. There's no way I'm going to be doing any guitar work in December because I'm a postman and I'm going to be out till 4 o'clock every afternoon, and I'm just not going to knacker myself that whole month. That whole month goes to my main job at Royal Mail. We're not allowed to take any leave at Royal Mail in December. That's the way it is. So I'll be closing the shop for a whole month. Anyway, I'm going to crack on with this. Check back later. Good morning, fret friends. So this morning we have the painstaking task of repairing all the chipped areas along the fingerboard, and there are dozens of them. And some worse than others, but they all need attention. Anything that sticks out by more than 1 millimetre will need to be filled and sanded down smooth. So what I do is take a piece of 1/2 mm silicone sheet, place it in the slot where I need to repair, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 areas here, all sticking out by 1 more than 1 millimetre. So what I'm going to do is it's quite a severe one, this one. I'm going to grab me some rosewood dust. It's actually rosewood and alder dust mixed, this. Most of it's from a 1964 Rickenbacker. And all I'm going to do is, I'm going to take the dust, I'm going to fill these areas, and we're going to try and not overfill it. And there's a lot of wood dust here, more than I probably need. But what we're going to do is we're going to take some CA glue, or super glue as it's commonly called. And we're going to run it down. Well, we would normally, except the end seems to have been blocked up, so we're just going to block that end. I'll grab a scissor. Got plenty of these extensions with super glue, fortunately, so I'll just snip the end off there, and all being well, get a run of super glue. Now try not to go too much, we're not going to saturate it, but we do want, here you go, that's the kind of gubbins we're looking at. And what we're going to do is take any of the excess and we're just going to run it across and smooth it like a paste. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in all the areas. We're going to let it set, let it dry. I'm trying to grab some more, it's not coming out at the moment, but there you go, a little bit more.
The reason we put silicone in there is it stops the glue and the dust all settling in the slot. And once I'm happy that we've got enough dust, I'm going to take a little sprinkling. We're just going to try it over. Any excess there, we'll stick back in the bag like so. So we're not wasting anything. So there you go. That is one done. And all we need to do is, because silicone doesn't stick, we'll just fold it a couple of times. I'm going to remove it, like so. And that glue should have done its thing. And what we're going to do is straight away get into the groove and clear that slot. So anything we've got in there, we can remove straight away. And being careful not to cut through the binding. And there you go, and that's it. And that's not finished. We need to finish that off by, just normally take a file and just follow a radius and let it bring the excess. We are going to sand the fingerboard again to smooth later on. So any scratches put in by this quite coarse file are not going to be there in the end. And there you go. So all these chipped areas here, they've gone completely. There are no chipped areas at all. I'm using a different kind of tool, an X-Acto blade at the moment, just to clear this slot again. And I actually have some more to do on the other side of this one. So as you can see, it's very long-winded. It's going to take me a long time to do this, probably going to take me all day. And I've got the whole fingerboard to do, the whole neck to do. So I'm going to crack on with this. I'm not going to do just this job today. I'm going to have another guitar on the other bench over there. So I'm going to be working 2 jobs today. I do have a day off from Royal Mail because I'm waiting in for a plumber today. Our heating's not working. So fortunately I get a whole day in the workshop as well, which is fantastic. I will come back and update you. But just before I do that, before I say that, before I come and update you, what have you. Once this is done and I've sanded it all off again and we're re-ready the board, we'll be ready for the new frets. So I will come back and give you an update as and when. Because this project has been so mishmash and so long-winded, it's difficult for me to remember exactly what I recorded last time, and I've not checked back. But what I'm doing is we've re-prepped the board after removing the frets we'd already put in. We took them out again and we've re-prepped the board, and I've had it, we dropped some oil on the fingerboard and let it soak into the slots. Now I've always tooled that out using various tools, one being an X-Acto knife, and what we're doing again is now we're recutting these slots to make sure they're deep enough. And what we do is we take a depth gauge, Stumac depth gauge there, and I don't know if you're going to see it where you are, and we'll make sure it's deep enough by letting the lines disappear. We certainly know that that's deep enough, and that one's deep enough because I've just done them, and again looks pretty good but not quite deep enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to recut the slots using this great tool I got from Stumac again, being careful not to cut through the binding. I've cut through the binding in a couple of places purely by accident. It does happen. We're going to fill that with some white dust later on, some any kind of dust and super glue, and we're going to fill those little holes in so you're not going to see them. And again, it's quite easy to slip with this saw, but what I've done is I've gone over a fingerboard with some naphtha Zippo fluid, let it soak into the slots just to get, because we're removing the gunk at the same time. And all we're doing is we're recutting the slots. It's not going to harm anything, that naphtha. And we're just going to make sure the slots are clear, like so, and we're going to check for depth on every one. That's a wrong piece there, I need the 1014 one, here we go. And because I cannot see, because the light's in the wrong place, I'm going to put my light on my phone on there, and just so we can see if we're deep enough. I'm going to shine the light on there, and I can see that that is deep enough. Where's the light? There you go, there it is. I hope you can see it on camera. I think you can. I think you'll be alright. So that slot is deep enough again. I have gone with a shorter tanged fret wire this time. Now some of these at the end, it's quite hard to cut right at the very end, so what I tend to do is cut a little notch in the fret wire, a little V, so it makes it fit better. I can explain more of that when I do it later on. So I'm going to crack on doing this. It is a long-winded process. It's had a lot of work, this guitar. It's been a right pain. I've had the last two refrets have been awful. I've had to redo both. So I've lost a lot of time and money on the last couple of projects, but end of the day, all I'm doing is making sure I get right to the edge of the fret. And that way we know the whole fret is going to fit in there. Sometimes the dust collects up in the corners and it seems like it's not deep enough, but it is. You just got to get the crap out of there. So again, let's just check again. So it's going to take me a while, and we are deep enough along the whole length of that fret now. And again there. We do cut the fret slightly inside the binding for the most part. Anyway, that's looking good. So I'm going to crack on. We're going to be tight slots because they've all been, I've refilled and repaired all of the chips. Oh, have I got a little chip there? You know what, I might just leave that for mojo purposes. I do have one little chip there. I'm going to repair that again in a bit. But yeah, it's looking, the fingerboard is looking fabulous. So at least when we do get the new frets in, we know the fingerboard's going to look great. So it's worth all that time and effort. It's worth that little bit of extra headache. At the end of the day, you know, these are hurdles we need to pass. And I'm sure it's going to be fine. Just getting ready to refret it for a second time with fret wire that fits this time. I had to go, I probably already mentioned that much, but I had to go to Stumac and buy some fret wire because it had a shorter tang, or shorter tang length, and I could only get £1 of it. I had to buy £1 of it, so it cost me 70 odd quid to buy the fret wire just for one guitar. I don't really, as a rule, I don't use Stumac fret wire, but I've got no choice. I'm sure I'll get a use for it in the future. So I had to get something as close as I could to the size I wanted. And this is just about it. Tang width. The width is 0.1. I don't even know what that is. So it's about 2.6 mil, isn't it? Crown is about 1.3. The tang is about, tang length is about 1.5. So I've got 3 strips out for now. Just going to put a top back on. I don't want to stick this down. And I'm going to show you how I cut fret wire. So first we're going to need to radius it. And we do have a radius tool here. And I don't know what it's set for. And if I ever radius it, it's absolutely fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosen that off. Really easy piece of kit to use. You just get your fret wire in when it's so high and you just run it through like so. I'm doing it backwards, you're seeing it in reverse. That's nowhere near enough, we need more of a bend than that. We're just going to do it again until we get a radius that I'm happy with. And it, again, really easy. Let me just show you. Try and do it the front way for you. And I can just pull it through if I want to, and then I'm going to feed it through the other side. Same thing. Just like so. And I don't have to wind it, I can just pull it through if I want to, like that. And we're going to check the radius on the guitar. We still need to go more than that. So we're going to set. I'm going to set again, I'm going to loosen. Turn it down a little, tighten back up. Feed it through again, and once I get a radius that I'm happy with, we'll go with that. And that looks to be a lot tighter, doesn't it? Let's feed it through this way. And that's a nice tight radius. I said it was about 9 inch. It's got to be about a 9 inch radius, so that's going to be fine. Just move the stuff out of the way. I don't know how many frets I'm going to get off one piece. Let's see where we are with this. Okay, that's what we call over radius, but only ever so slightly over radius. So
So I'm really pleased with that. Might even give it another nip. I'm thinking just a tiny bit. Just give it a little bit extra. You're not going to hurt anything by over radiusing. And again, feed it through the opposite way. And that, we certainly are over radius there, but I'm going to like that. Yeah, that's over radius, that's fabulous. So there's one. I'm going to measure how many frets we're going to get out of one piece. I'm going to use more than I need to. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Get 10 pieces out of that. So we're going to need to do 2.5 pieces. We'll get 11 out of the other one, because we're going to be doing the thin end. And that's this bit's well over radius, but that's good, we like that. Look at that, I think we've over radius that a bit. That's not a problem. Better over than under. I can straighten it if I need to. I'm not going to, actually not going to. That's fine. That's fine, quite happy with that. I'm not even going to need to do that much of that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look. I'm going to use this at the thinner end, use this at the fatter end. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut some frets. I'll do it all live. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one fret, take a measure. My Stumat cutters, these are expensive but they're brilliant, and cut a fret. And I've cut more there than I need to, and that's fine. And again, overcut them all, it's fine. These cutters really do cut. It doesn't, I don't have to line these up, I can just cut them and just put them in the biggest one in the slot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so we're going to go about there. As long as I've got more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 takes us down to 15, 14, 14, 13. There you go. So we'll go 13 up. Just pop them in here. 13, 14. And what I'll do is I'll do these biggest to smallest. So I'll just leave these down. That's long. End of the day, just need them longer than the slot they're going in. These are cut pretty much smaller. Smaller. So we'll go there. He's going to go there. And I think they're all going to be big enough for the slots anyway. That's pretty good, that's pretty good. Right, okay. 15. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So we've done down to thread 13, I believe. And they're all in the little holder just there. And we'll do the same with these. We've done 13 I've west, so we'll go, have we done 13? Yeah, 13. Going to overlap with a bit of this one because it a bit right on the edge doesn't really arc as much as the rest, so we're going to do that. I'm going to snip off the other end of this one. Well, that should be 12 anyway. We've already done 13. That's 12, very good. We haven't. 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Again, we'll discard the end anyway. And one more for fret 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend, I'm going to get the radius already in this one. Now the first inch I'm going to discard because it won't be the right radius. So I'm going to cut off where it's straight. So I'm going to use twice as much for this last one. Absolutely fine. And this is going to be fret 1. Because I want the radius of it, I'm just going to snip our end off, snip this end off, and there you go. That's my 22 frets, all radius and cut close to the length that we need to be. I just need to check the phone, so I'm going to turn the camera off a minute, check the phone because I'm waiting for 2 clients to come in. No one's turned up yet. Well, that's good, that's one of my clients is on the way. So I've now cut the frets to almost the size we need them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take each one out. This one for instance is 22. I'm going to see how much we need to remove to get the tang off. We've got to remove some of the tang. I have a great tool here, tang nipper by St Tom's, cut stainless and all sorts. It's a great piece of kit. It's just a matter of feeding him the fret. Feed him a fret and we're just going to nib off. I've not set it right. That should be good. Take a little bit off one side, a little bit off the other. And there you go. If you see now, I removed from that end, from both ends actually, I removed a sliver of the tang. Shouldn't need any filing. And all I need to do is make sure that this fits inside the slot. And at the moment it doesn't because I've cut this a little bit wider than I ought to have done. So I'm going to snip off a little bit off the end of each. And I'm going to remove a little bit of the tang again. Now I'm going to be very careful with this because I do like a barb right at the end there. And if I cut that end off I'm not going to have one at the end, so I'm just going to take a little bit off this end. And then I'm going to check that that fits in there. Again, it's still not enough, so I need to move a little bit more. Snip off the end. And these are basically going to be precision cut frets. So now I've cut it to the width I need. I've got a little bit of overhang on each side. I don't know if you can see there. Let me get my hand right behind it. You should have some overhang there, overhang there. We need this bobbed bit here. We're trying to fit inside the slots, and it does. And that's fabulous. And that's the first fret cut, and it's more or less to exact width. Once I tap that down, it'll fit right inside those slots. So that's that one done. I'm going to crack on and get the rest of it done. It's going to take me a while. I'm going to do each one. Each one is going to be precision fitted to the slot it's going in. So give me a while. Once it's all done, I'll bring you back in and show you that the frets are done, and we can concentrate on getting them in finally. So we have all of the frets cut from 22. Just show you that there. See the cuts in the edge there, so it can just fit inside the binding. We could pluck any one out of here. 22. We'll pluck number 1 out there. Yeah, number 1. Beautiful. Number 14, for instance. They're all cut to size 12, 13, 14. And they're all going to overlap just nice at the edge there. We'll probably have a little bit sticking out the edge, so we need to trim off later, but they are all cut ready to go in. Now, ebony is a hard wood and it dries and it cracks and it splinters, so I'm not going to put the frets in as they are just in dry wood. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I normally do. And I don't know if anybody else does it, and I don't care if anyone else does it. I've always done it. I'm going to drop some oil into the slots just to soften them up slightly to take the frets. And I'm going to go with some regular, just normal lemon oil that I use for fingerboard conditioning. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to spray fingerboard liberally, and I'm going to let this oil work itself into the frets overnight. And this will just soften the edges of the wood, because over time this oil will dry, so it will even act as not a binder but a filler. So all I'm going to do is let that get into the slots overnight. In the morning or tomorrow sometime I'll come back, I'll dry this off with a can of compressed air, I'll blow out any residue, and then we can get the frets in. The frets will go in nice and easy. I don't know anyone else who does this. I've always done it. It's always worked a treat for me. So I'm going to leave that overnight. I'm going to go put it on another bench in the other room, let that settle overnight, let that oil work its way into the fret slots, and tomorrow we're going to get the frets in. Now I'm not going to press them in. I have had various fret pressers over the years, even down to a GMC universal fret press, which cost me £450. Absolute load of rubbish that was. I didn't like the mechanism at all. So I'm going to hammer the frets in. Tried and tested method that I've talked to many luthiers over the years, and they all say just hammer them in. Just hammer them in. It's the best way. It works. Do it right, you won't go wrong. So I'm going to hammer them in tomorrow. So that's all ready. I'm going to move on to something else. I'll bring you back tomorrow and we'll crack on and get these frets in. So as I mentioned last night, I'll come in next day. I'm going to blow all the excess oil out of the fret slots using some compressed air and wipe all that out. I've already wiped the top of the fingerboard. As you'll see it, this will blow it out. Just give it a wipe. And I'll leave that half a day. Frets will be good to go in. Something I've always done with ebony. This ebony is so dry and it splits and cracks so easily, especially when it's been sat for years, you know, on an older guitar. So brittle. You spend as much time repairing the fingerboard. In fact, you spend more time repairing the fingerboard than you do fretting it. Once I've done all this, I'll do it again on the other side. Make sure we've got as much oil out of these slots as possible. But leaving a little bit of oil in there is not going to harm anything. I've been doing it this way for years. Now these little cuts I've got in the binding, I'm going to fill with epoxy. Some epoxy stain. I've got some white stain. And once it's in there, you won't notice it. Just to tidy everything up. Ideally, we don't ever want to cut through the binding, but sometimes you just can't help it. You'll get a tough piece of glue inside a slot and you'll slip with a blade and it'll just cut straight through the binding. It's happened in a few cases on this one. It's something we expect now and again. We'd love to avoid it if we could, but it's not always possible. There is one little bit I need to repair there. There's a big gap in there. I was going to leave it, but I've seen it today and it's worse than I thought it was. We're not going to get away with it. I don't even want to get away with it. I don't want to get away with anything. I want to do it right. So there you go. That's all done from one side. And it looks pretty good. Quite happy with that. The board looks great. Once you see some small chips, but nowhere near as wide as the fret wire is going to be. So the fret wire is going to cover all that. So this is going to look fabulous once it's done. We've got one chip there to repair, one chip there to repair. So I'm going to crack on and get that done. I'm going to re-blow all of the oil out, and then we'll be ready for refretting. I'm going to refret this late this afternoon. I think we're coming up to lunchtime. I'll probably let this sit 3 hours. Yeah, that looks really, really good. So with the neck firmly supported, all I need under this is I'm just hammering the fret straight down into the weight of the body. So I don't need any support underneath, but when we move along the neck, we'll support underneath everywhere as we hammer the frets in. And it's really quite simple. We just place the fret where we need it to go, making sure we've got a little bit of overlap on each fret, and all we're going to do is just tap in the edges. Not using any glue because it's ebony and we've soaked it in oil. This should hold the frets, and once I've tapped the edges in, we'll just go tap all the way across. You do not need to whack it. You should never ever need to whack frets in. Just nice and gentle. Feel with your nail if you've got any gaps underneath. We haven't. And that really is it. It really is as difficult as that, or should I say as simple as that. Sometimes I just like to give the edges just a little extra tap with the metal side. And they are going in really, really nicely. So I'm going to crack on, get the rest of them in. The problem with having binding is you cannot flare open the slots. Sometimes you flare them open with your triangle file. Kind of that's why I drop the oil in there, just to soften the edges just a little bit. And these frets are going in a lot better than the last lot. The last lot, the tangs were too long. So we don't need a lot of work at all. As you can see, like I say, these tangs are just about 1 millimetre inside the binding, and once you flatten them out, it's going to spread more toward the binding, so these are going to be in really, really well. So that's it. I'm going to crack on, get the rest of them in, and I'll be supporting these frets around this area with the neck support. That nice piece of leather on there, stoppers marking the guitar, and shouldn't take me too long. I'll be back when I've done. All those have gone in really well, and I've just been checking some slots, make sure there's no gaps anywhere. I've tapped them all down. I've been across with a fret rocker. They are more or less level. Obviously we're going to need some proper leveling, and we've got them, bevel them and re-crown them and polish them and everything, but a lot better than the last lot of fret wire. At least the tangs have all gone into the wood this time, because the slots, well, we made them deeper anyway, but we got a better fret wire. Couple of gaps I might be seeing slightly beneath the bottom of the fret and the binding, that's because the binding was cut really right down. If I need to pack anything up underneath, I will do with some epoxy, just to give it that little bit of support, but I don't think it's anything we're going to notice anyway. I'm going to round everything off really nicely. I've noticed a little bit of a chip in the lacquer here between these two frets. That may have happened when I was having my frets in, a little chip in there. There's not anything I can do about it. I'm going to have to leave it as it is. I'll explain this to the owner of the guitar. I'm sure he'll be okay with it. If we really needed to do something with it, we could drop fill it with some epoxy, or mix some epoxy with some stain and drop that in there. So it's not going to be a major problem anyway. But yeah, I'm quite happy with how these frets have gone in. I'm going to leave it. I'm not here tomorrow. Going away, going to the coast for a day with the wife and the dog. But I may, when I come back, if I'm happy with how these frets have gone in, I may wick some super glue just under the slots here, if I think it's necessary. At the moment I don't think it is, but we'll see how these settle, and I'll come back and let you know in a couple of days. Okay, so I know the light is not brilliant in here. I'm in a different room. It's a lot cooler room for starters, and this is where my workbench is, and this is where I'm able to support a guitar properly in a vise and get to be able to file the frets. So I'm going to be doing just filing fret edges. So I don't know if you'll see where you are, but that is not binding. This is yellow tape, and it's just to stop me marking the binding. I've got a lovely flat straight file here. It's quite a coarse one. It's from a beveling file that's normally in a holder, but I don't use a holder, I do it by hand. So taking this out, and all I'm going to be doing is just filing the edges of these frets. When I get up here to this end, I've got a safe edge there, look, so I can't cut into the guitar. So that's the way I'll be using the file. And all I'm doing here is getting it close. Once I start hitting the tape, I know I've got to be a little bit more careful. I'll change files. I'll use a much finer file, and I'll be a lot more careful because I need to go actually beyond the paper. So that's just to show you how I remove the edges. Once we get close to the tape, I'll be a little bit more careful, take a bit more time. And in hindsight, I should have removed these pickup rings. I'm going to have to anyway, because the file is coming up toward the pickups, and I don't want to be going over there. I mean, I could work it. I'd have to be a lot more careful, but anyway, I might get away with it. So I'm going to crack on, get this done. When I swap files over, I'll show you what file I'll be using, and I'll show you how I actually bevel the edges of the frets. So on this end here, we're getting right close. I've gone through the paper just a little bit there. It's not gone into the binding or into the guitar. So when I get as close as this, that's not cutting there. The angle, we're still slightly cutting. So what I'm going to do is slightly angle and start creating that bevel. Not a big bevel. I like to go 10-15 degrees, not the 35 degrees some people recommend. And I can see I'm cutting into the paper. Look, the paper's starting to come off. So it's no great shakes if I remove that now, because I'm going to take the time anyway. Snip it about there. And now, because we're right on binding the lacquer, I'm now going to pull the file away from the frets. So what I'm doing in effect is a safe edge. It's going to be against the guitar, and I'm just on this bit, just keeping it straight, keeping it off the guitar body. Keeping it really steady, nice and gentle, backwards and forwards, and just removing that final edge that's sticking out at an angle, a very, very slight angle, because we don't want to be cutting into the binding. And this is the most difficult area to do. I'm not digging into the pickup like I thought I was, we're missing it, because I'm doing this at a slight angle. And I feel down here with my finger. And it's just very, very slightly, only ever so slightly, outside the binding now. Once I get the other file out, we'll get this right up to the edge. And we are right on the edge now, which is fantastic. Like I say, when we get the other file out, we'll bring this right into the edge. We won't cut into the lacquer, so we're not going to damage the binding anyway. And all I've got to do right now is just carry on until I start slightly hitting the tape, and I'll do the same again. So I've already done this end, so I'm going to carry on now and do the whole length. All the way down, making sure not to hit the headstock at this end. The fret finishes here, so I can safely stop. We're just right where the knot is. I'm experienced enough to know when to stop and where to be. And once I start getting paper, tearing the paper or the tape, should I say, I know I want these to be extra careful. So I'm going to crack on with that. Once I'm ready to use the finer file, I will come back and I'll bring you back in and show you how we get it close up without marking the binding. So we're now very close to where we need to be. So I'm going to swap files. I'm going to go with my Valorb Swiss number 4 cut file, super smooth but super sharp. Again, I have a safe edge here. So a safe edge down, and we're right close now. So you see I've removed the tape. And I'm just going to be going with this file by hand, following the line of the binding at an angle. So not flat to the binding, just at an angle. Just remove any burrs that we might have on the edge. And it doesn't seem, we don't seem to have any. Safe edge down. And again, that feels pretty good. So we're just going to angle for the bevel. The main thing is not cutting, it is cutting. All by hand. That should all feel smooth, which it does. So that's one side done. Now I'm going to check when we're on the bench how much bevel we've got. We don't have a lot of bevel in there at all. In fact, hardly any bevel at all, which I like. I don't use a lot of bevel because there's more plain area. So with the binding being 1.5 mm, nearly 2 mm wide, we've got an extra 4 mm of plain area here because I'm going to keep the bevel really shallow. We're looking at about 10 degrees on this maximum. As you'll notice, as I'm filing, I'll bring it back up just to make sure we're getting that any bits overhanging off there. We are cutting ever so slightly into the lacquer on the binding. It would be impossible to not touch the lacquer on the binding. Be very careful not to dig into the guitar there and not to dig into the pickup here. And I will have a look at the bevel angle on there. Hardly any bevel at all. Absolutely beautiful. And that's where I'm going to leave it. And that is that side done. So what we need to do later on is to roll these edges over so you don't feel anything at all before we do the final sanding. But yeah, I'm very happy with that. Also the cuts I put in the binding, which does you can hardly see them. So I'm not going to even need to fill that with epoxy like I thought I was. That's going to be absolutely fine as it is. So I'm going to flip the guitar over, do the other side exactly the same. Once that's done, we can go back to the other bench. We can start rolling over the edges. We're not going to do that straight away. We're going to get the frets leveled, then we're going to come and roll over these bevels with an even smaller file, and then we can look at getting the frets all leveled, recrowned and polished. In the setup room, which unfortunately for me is the warmest room in the building, I have a guitar very gently clamped at this end using an F clamp, piece of leather and a piece of wood protecting the guitar body, so it's not going to move anywhere unless I really force it. I can come and hand finish the bevels. using just the number 4 cut file, the Swiss one. Again, safe side down, flat side, just make sure I've got safe side down, and I can just now re-bevel to the angle I want them to be. There's hardly any bevel on there at all, and that's how I like it. Probably a 10-degree bevel is all that's needed, because it gives us a lot more fret to play with. The bevel ends less than halfway in on the binding. It gives us a lot more fret to play with, which is better for bends. So I've got a lot more fret to use. And all I'm doing is making sure I'm right up to the edge, which I am. So you're not going to feel these frets when you play. And I'm just going to get that bevel uniform down the length of the whole neck. I need to hold it here because the guitar the neck is just moving a bit. I've only got it clamped at one end. Once I start getting white come off the file, I know I'm cutting into the binding. I don't mind taking a little bit of the binding, but I want the smallest amount possible. And that, I can't feel the frets at all down that side. I can feel the sharp tops, but they need rounding over. And that, my friends, is just about done on both sides. That looks really, I'm really happy with that. Hardly any bevel at all at this end. Probably need to come in just a little bit more. And that is looking beautiful. So we've got almost full width frets. Now that, my friends, is about ready for levelling. Before I do level, I'm going to show you how we round over these edges. And again, another file, another Stumac file, what I add. And this has a safe edge and a safe edge, and it has a cut both sides. And all we're going to do is we're going to round over these bevels. And it's just one stroke, 2 strokes, and over the top. A little bit more. So you're probably going to need about 5 strokes of that. And that just rounds over these beveled edges here. And that's it. That's as much work as it needs. So 3, 5 to 7 strokes of a file. Take your time. Can't feel that fret at all now. Now when we sand these over later, these are going to be beautifully rounded. You can't feel those frets at all, and that's how we want all of them. So I've got the whole lot to do. Once that's done, I'm not going to do that now. I'm actually going to level the frets first, then we'll come back. We're going to need to get the fingerboard all taped up. We'll come back, we'll get the frets leveled. Once they're leveled, then we'll come over and we'll do the rounding over. Once that's done, we're going to sand over them again and move on to the polishing. Take your time with this. It's very rewarding when you've taken the time to do it right. A couple of things I need to do. There's a couple of chips still in my fingerboard. I've spotted one there, and this can happen when you're hammering frets in. There's one there. So all I'm going to do is drop some dust in, leave it flush, and just drop a tiny drop of super glue in there. I'm not going to sand it, I'm not going to file it, I'm just going to let it find its own level. So a couple of cosmetic things I still must do, but let me tell you now, this fingerboard looks absolutely fabulous. Remember, it has been reprofiled. It's had a lot of work. This is the second refret I've done on this, so when it comes to earning money, I've probably earned £5 an hour on this guitar when all said and done. But end of the day, it's all about getting the job right. Good afternoon, friends. You will have to put up with the sound of the traffic outside because there's not a lot I can do about it. It's really warm in here today, so just been across the frets with the levelling file. Precision straight diamond file. I've I've gone and looked for the high spots, checked with a fret rocker to see where we are, and I'm just about getting to the end where the frets are more or less flat and on the whole length of the neck. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to brush off all of the filings here. In fact, I'm going to blow them off and I'm going to blow them straight onto the floor. If they want to come off. I shouldn't be blowing that, I should be blowing dry. And that's not really doing the job too well, so I'm going to just rub the file dust off. Always level that tape at the neck. Let's just see where we are. I'm just going to check the level again, and I think we're going to be pretty much where we need to be. Not worried about any marks or anything on the fingerboard yet. We've got to oil all that up yet anyway. Our final setup, which is just about determining see if the frets are all level along the length of the neck. So we're going to have another quick check. If I'm happy, I'm going to mark them all up. I'm going to go across with a leveling beam. I know there's no high spots on the first 4 or 5 frets anyway. And they were pretty level once hammered in. This one seems pretty good so far. What I'm going to do is, once I've got these frets levelled with a levelling beam on the whole length, I'm going to tape up the fingerboard, I'm going to re-crown the frets and move on to polishing. These frets are beautiful. Went in very well. I've been over again and just beveled the edges just a little bit more this morning. Still a very small amount of bevel, which I like. And they look absolutely fabulous. I've also filled in some more holes in the fingerboard. There are a couple I've left. There's one there I've left, a little tiny chip. That has been filled in once, but not filled right. So I'm going to leave that because that is going to show some of the mojo in the fingerboard. It's not going to cause a problem. And it's looking pretty fabulous. So the frets are level. What I'm going to do is now we're going to go across with a levelling beam. So I'm going to mark all the frets up. Permanent marker pen, Sharpie. I'll let me mark these up. I'll get the levelling beam out and wait for a client that's due here any minute. So I'll wait till he's been and I'll come back and I'll show you just finishing the frets off ready for crowning. The frets are level. I've been over with 240 grit, which is at that side. I'm going to finish off with 400 grit, which will remove the scratches. So again, I'll just show you this is a levelling beam. It's got 2 precision straight edges, one there, one there. We buy this emery cloth on a roll, and I stick some. What I do is put inch masking tape on the surface. Then I use double-sided sticky tape to stick the emery to the masking tape, and the masking tape is really easy to peel off. If I use just double-sided sticky tape, it'd be a nightmare to get off that surface, and we'll be damaging that flat surface. So always put a layer or a line of masking tape down there first, then double-sided sticky tape, and stick the emery on. So just with the 400 grit, we're just going to follow a radius, and just in a few strokes the black pen should be off. And if it is, it tells us that the frets are level. Just having a quick look there, and the tops of the frets are all silver, so that tells us that the frets along the whole length of the neck are level, just a little bit on this edge here. Let's have a look now, and that's it, the frets are level. So if I take a fret rocker across now, I'll put the chair in the other room, I'll just have to stand up. And I know these are level. So what we're going to do is now we're going to get the fingerboard taped up, ready for recrowning the frets. And doing the bevel, smoothing off the beveled edges, rounding them over as well. It's not nothing you've not seen before. These frets are dead level. Beautiful job. And a long job this one, because like I said, the first lot of fret wire, the tank were too deep. I didn't know till I'd half got them in, and I thought, no, it's going to cause damage. There you go, frets are bang on level. I'm ready now. I'm going to get the fingerboard cleaned up, then I'm going to tape it up, ready for crowning. Where the frets are now flat, we're going to crown them, and I'll come back and show you how to do that momentarily. So I've taped off the fingerboard area, just leaving the frets exposed. I've marked the tops with marker pen, permanent marker, Sharpie, whatever you want to call it, and just with 2 files I'm going to recrown these frets. By recrown, the frets are now flat on the top because we've filed them all that way, or sanded them that way to level them. We need to put those crowns back in, and we have this piece of equipment here from Stumac called a Z file. Great piece of kit. It has 2 cuts. It has a sharp, shallow, sharp and short, and a long, a narrower cut, if you know what I mean. Like I said, there's a long cut on this side, but it's not a very steep angle. When you've got a steep angle shortcut, and if you turn it over 180 degrees, you've got the exact opposite. And this file will not touch the top of the frets. Now, because we've levelled the frets, we marked them up, and we know these frets are level, so we don't want any material removing from the top of the frets. But this will remove varying amounts from each side at the same time. And once you've flipped it over again, it'll leave a nice thin line down the centre. It's much easier to show you than to try and explain it. That's a diamond file, and they're not cheap, but again, they're not expensive for how long they last. I've had this, I think I've had this 3 years, and it's still cutting like it's new. And there you go. You saw me flip it 180 degrees, and that's left a thin black line down the centre of the fret, and that fret is now recrowned. Now what I'll do with a second file in a moment is I'll just make that cut uniform, just in case we've got any burrs or any unequal areas there. And that is already cut to the crown size, this file. This was a gift from a friend of mine years ago. And all I'm going to do with this is just go over the sides, not even going to go over the top till I get to the edges. And again, and I'm just going to do that edge, and I'm going to do this edge, and that's going to beautifully crown the edges of the bevels for rounding over later on with a trimming file. It's not really a trimming file, but it's one I use to bevel the edges with. So that's that one fret recrowned. Always clean the file after you've done a fret, and move along to the next one. Same again. This file will not touch the top of the fret, so we know that if they're all level, they're all going to be level once we finish them. Flip it 180. Just beautiful, nice thin line down the centre. Clean the file, ready for the next one. And come across with the crowning file again. And that's 2 now done. I'm going to crack on, get the rest of them done. Once that's done, I'll show you how we polish frets. The frets are now all recrowned. Before I move on to the polishing stage, I have one more job to do. And again, it's a Stumac file. I've shown you this before. I might have even shown it earlier in this video. A small Stumac file. Stuart McDonald, you'll be able to see it on there. And this has 2 cutting sides. It has a safe edge there, rolled round, and a safe edge on the top. But this is the right way up. It's all super smooth, and we use this one for rounding over the beveled edges of the frets. And I've already done these first 2, but I've still got to go and do the rest. And you can do this in 3 strokes if you're brilliant. You can do it 4 or 5 strokes if you're good. In fact, you can do it in 7 strokes if you're good. It doesn't matter. Now I've already gone over these bevels, just making sure I know which one is on there, with this file, which again is brilliant for just going over the edges. It will almost get you there, but this just will give you just that little bit more. And it's just a matter of rolling over and just softening those beveled edges there. And now when you run your finger across, you won't feel them. I'm also going to be sanding these later on before I do the polishing. So again, you don't want to be feeling these frets, but the good thing about the way I've beveled these frets and not having a really massive angle, these are about 15 degrees these, so you've got almost a full width of the neck and off of the binding to work the fret or to bend the strings to. So like I say, all I'm doing is I'm just rolling this over, just a few strokes each time. I'm going to flip the guitar 180 degrees and do this side as well, side closest to me. It's going to take me a while. Once that's done, I can move on to the polishing. I'm not going to be doing the polishing today. I've got another guitar I've got to get a nut on, a brand new bone nut on there for tea time, so I'm going to drop off this one, but I'll carry on with this one tomorrow. So we now have the frets polished. I've gone through with 7 grits of sandpaper from 400 right through to 2000 grit and all the grits in between. We're now ready to finish off the polishing with some superfine steel wool. The finest grade there is, grade 00000. This is a brand new fresh piece and it's really easy. All we're doing is pinching over the top of the fret, and we know these are now polished, so we've got all the strashes out of them, but we're still not shiny. But using the steel wool will bring them up to a beautiful shine, and that, my friends, is fabulous. And it's really simple. We just pinch over the top, so we're getting the top and the edges. I've also softened the edges using a piece of 600 grit that I used earlier. Just rolled the edges over both sides, so these frets are now super smooth. You're not going to feel them up the sides of a fingerboard now. We've got a lovely steep gradient on the bevels, only about a 15-20 degree bevel when all said and done, so you're getting a lot more width of the frets you use now for playing. You're actually getting right over the binding, so you're getting a lot more room to bend. But there you go, that's how we do the frets. I'm going to finish these ones off on camera. Once that's done, I'm going to peel off the tape and we're going to have a look. I'll show you the frets how they are. They are going to be absolutely beautiful. So just about to peel off the last of the tape. These frets look fabulous. To say this is low tack tape, it does stick really well. In fact, it sticks too well sometimes, but now once this fingerboard's all oiled up, these frets will pop and look absolutely fabulous. Get the last piece of tape off. And they look superb, really good. So again, just need to fill down the edge, make sure nothing's cut in, and nothing is cut in. You can feel a little bit of sharpness if you really press in like that. You're going to feel that anyway where it just hits the binding just here, but those frets look fabulous. They'll look even better once I've sprayed the fingerboard with some mineral oil. But yeah, looking really good. The guitar I've not worked on for a short time. This is a 2005 Les Paul. I'm just ready to remove the pickups. The refret's been done, the nut's been glued in. We've cleaned up the area around the nut that was damaged. We couldn't help damaging it. It was so difficult to get that nut out. And I'm ready for swapping the pickups over. Now when I find my screwdriver, which I've done, I've already desoldered the wires from the pots. And all I'm doing is swapping these two pickups for 2 other pickups. I'm going to look at swapping the surrounds as well, because I've got some spare surrounds. It's just whether they fit or not. So pickups wise, they should just come straight out. It's a neck, Seymour Duncan, some type, bridge, and they should come straight out. The 3-way switch is intact. I'm not altering anything there because I don't need to. The wires are all where they need to be. They're all soldered to the right place at the back of these pots. The only things I've got to do is solder the 2 pickups to these 2 pots. Really easy, nothing difficult there. And so I'm going to crack on. I'm going to get the pickups out. I'm going to clean this area up. I'm going to check the new pickup rings, and I'll bring you back in a short while. So we are getting to a real exciting part of this project, and we are replacing the old pickups which I've already removed and are in this box. And the reason I want to show you this box is these are the pickups that are going in. Custom shop, I think these were 500 quid. Joe Bonamassa signature set. And just to show I've got the old pickups in there that I've just taken out. I'm keeping the original pickup rings, the ones I bought didn't fit. And I've got the brand new Bonamassa custom pickups that are going in this guitar. And I'm going to have a look at them, quick glimpse. And they're just a 2-wire. Right, they're not brand new because they've been in something before, so maybe you bought it used, I don't know. I didn't know that they've been used before, but that is the, that's a neck, because it says neck in that bottom corner there. I didn't know these had come out of something else, so maybe he took them out one of his other guitars, I don't know. And this is the bridge. So they are used because of the gubbins on the wire there. So I'm going to remove the 2 volume pots to get these in. That is the bridge. So, both covered, they're going to look fabulous. So I'm going to bang these in shortly. Not just bang them in, I mean you don't put them in with a hammer. But that's it, I just wanted to show you those. I do know that these do retail at a very hefty price, I'm sure it's over 500 quid. So I need to get those in the pickup rings. Can't really mess the wiring up, it's so simple. And there you go. So back later. So I'm just about to complete the wiring. I've got the neck pickup wired in. I've put a new capacitor in here. I've taken out the small thingy one, Gibson one. I've put in a new old stock Mullard mustard capacitor from the 60s. I've had a few knocking about for a few years. I've got about half a dozen left, and they're my cap of choice. I'm just going to, this is a bridge pickup, I'm just going to insulate the bridge pickup wire. So it doesn't go around touching anything it shouldn't touch, and that is just going to go just there, like so. No need to really melt it on, but I'm going to melt just a bit. Just to hold it in place. Shrink that tube in. Because I want to leave all the wire intact. So this one, again, I need to put, I've got the capacitor, it's got an orange drop. I didn't have an orange drop to match. So, and this has not been put in that well. I don't know who did it, but you know, I said I'd tidy it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually tidy it up. So let's remove this completely. There's too much solder on some of these connections. So we'll get a solder sucker on there and we'll remove some of the solder. I think that one's okay. But this one, far too much solder on there. I don't know who's wired this before, but I think it was, I'm not going to say who it is. That's for the owner of this guitar to sort out, not me. I know where this guitar's been, and I know this guy's got supposed to have a big reputation, supposed to be pretty good at what he does, but I've had a few of his guitars to sort out. And I'm not going to say who it is, it's not my business. Oh, the solder sucker is on its last legs, but looks of it. It just keeps going off on its own. That's about as clean as I can get it. So let's have a look at this capacitor, see what we're going to do with that. I mean, how good does that look? That doesn't look pathetic. Totally pathetic. Let's get this right. I'm going to snip off some ends of this. We're going to get this right. There's some a bit of pride. Right, this will do it. See, that didn't take long, did it? This is just about neat enough. That's neat enough. You know, a bit of pride. Will it reach? Probably not now, but we can just stretch these legs out a little. Got pride in your work. Probably better off bedding these with pliers because they don't bend the brute. Oh, that's a lot better. Here you go. So what I want to do here is I'm going to solder this and the pickup in together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to solder the far side lug first. Doesn't matter where we solder that. So it'll bend up anyway. That's nice. With this, I just want a little of the pickup wire bare. That's nice. And again. And that's good. Good connection both sides there. I'll snip off the end of the pickup wire, pickup hot wire, and that's that done. And what I'll do is I'll come and take a photograph of this once I've done. Like I said, I've cleaned it up a bit. It's messy wiring in here, but it's a lot better than it was now. And all I've got to do now is solder this earth wire onto the back of this pot. I don't want it curling around that way, so let's have a look, see how this is going to go. That looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do with this solder that's already there, I'm going to melt this solder and make a blob out of it. My iron is set at 340 Celsius, which should be enough for this. Seems to be pretty good. At 340 Celsius it should be enough. And there you go. We have a beautiful connection there. Solder iron off. Try and tidy up when messes I go along. And that is the wiring done. I'll take a photograph of it shortly and I'll come and show you how it looks. While I've got the guitar on the bench, I've just been cleaning it up with some cream of Carnauba wax. Dunlop 65 stuff, and I'm just rubbing it in. I've already done this half of the body last night, so I'm doing this front half today. I've already done the back and sides, and it's just a matter of getting it rubbed in and buffed off. And do this while you've got the knobs and everything off, so it's easy to get into everywhere. So that's that. Where's my buffing cloth? Here it is. And this will come up lovely. So the electrics are in, like I said. I've not shown the electrics yet, I'll show you in a minute. If I was doing it from scratch, I'd have done it tidier than it is. It's just already a bit of a mess. I've tidied it up a bit. My wiring I've done is tidy. I've replaced the Gibson capacitor on the neck with a Mullard mustard, one of my new old stock, I think from the 60s. I had 7 left, I've now got 6 left. I've put that in there free of charge. I've removed the little Gibson one, not really to make a lot of difference. I actually like the little Gibson ones. But there you go, that's the guitar all polished up. A couple of more things to do. I've got to get the knobs back on there, but I'll just hold the guitar up and show the electrics as they are. I've covered one of the bridge pickup. It has a long wire on it, so I've covered that in shrink wrap tubing. So you've got one Mullard mustard and one orange rock capacitor in there. Orange rock capacitor on the bridge, Mullard mustard on the neck. I was going to stick a .015 in there, but I thought no, I'll stick to the .022. And that's that. So I'm going to get the knobs back on. I'm going to get the back plate back on. In fact, I'm going to put the back plate on now. The guitar is looking really nice. Neck wants a bit of a polish yet. I'll put some Colonel wax on there as well, but I've not buffed it off. So a quick look at that. The neck was pretty beat up when it came in. In fact, the neck wasn't straight when it came in. It is now. So it's had a humongous amount of work, this guitar. It's been here a long time though. There we go, so let's stick on the back plate, and that is going to be a bit of a polish as well, the looks of that. So let's get a polish while it's off the guitar. And I do know that one of the screws is a little bit loose, so we're going to bung that up with a little bit of cocktail stick in a moment. So that's there, 4 screws on here. But yeah, a job very well done. It's a cracking guitar, and it's something, if I was pleased with it, it's something I can be proud of, something I should enjoy playing. It didn't have a straight neck, came in with a bent neck. He wanted the frets replacing, the frets weren't very good. So I've straightened the neck, which is the first thing I had to do. If I couldn't straighten the neck, I wouldn't have been doing anything on it. But I did straighten the neck, refretted it. I've actually I've actually refretted it twice. I had to take the first set out because that's just a very light packet I dropped on there, because the fret wire, the tang was too long and the frets wouldn't sit. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to bang in, see how much we need to go in there. Right, not much, so just a small amount. I'm going to put in, not going to need any glue with this. A small amount of cocktail stick. That packet I dropped on there, by the way, was a cocktail stick pack. It's not going to cause any harm to anything. If you're going, oh, it's dropped some on the guitar. And in there. So we're going to oof that in there. That's nice. What did I do with the screw? It's a very good question, Mr. Kroll. There you go. And this will now be going in tighter. Won't need gluing in because that will find its own mark in there. And there you go. So I've got to check the electrics, put the knobs back on. I'm not going to put the knobs back on right now because I've not checked the electrics yet. I'm going to get plugged in a minute. I'm just going to also wipe the headstock, the back of the headstock. So everything's been waxed. There was also, getting the nut out was an absolute bind. It did chip the paint. And what I did was to repair that, or to repair it the best I could, I used some tinted epoxy to match it up. Then sand it down to 2000 grit. So it became nice and smooth, and polished it up, and it looks really good. But yeah, 2 refrets on this. The first refret I had to take back out. Of course, taking it back out, I had to repair the chipped fretboard again. Remember also I straightened the neck and re-profiled or re-radius the neck as well. So it's had a lot of work, certainly more than I'm charging for it. The whole job, including straightening the neck with a refret and pickup swapped over, I charged him a preset price of £350, I've done myself out of a good few hours there, but I don't mind. You know, it's all about getting this guitar back, and he needed to be happy. If you're not happy with it, I'll not be charging him anything. You know, he's got to be happy with this. So I hope all my attention and care that's gone into it is seen for what it is. So there's that. Things I always do, I've already tightened these because I put them on earlier. Always check the screws on the tuners. Give it another little nip, just a little nip. Polish has brought this up really nice. At the end of the day, it's all about the client. He's waited a long time for this, so I hope he's happy with it. I'm going to test the electrics in a minute. If the electrics are fine, I'm going to put the knobs back on, and then we can look at getting the guitar strung up and set up, final set up. It looks really, really nice. And I'll write down everything I've done to the guitar, and I'll be able to tie this video up. There's something else I need to do while we're down here, is just check strap pins. I think I might have checked them before, but that's as tight as it can be. That's as tight as it can be, that's good. One thing I've not done is I've not tightened up these. I've got a great little tool for that. It's a knob puller. Get it under your knob, pull your knobs out, and also this will tighten screws. Right, so I don't have to go mental. And all the other parts of the guitar are in the case. And there you go, they are tightened up. So I can go and check it all over now. Once it's checked over, we'll get some strings back on. I'll polish this headstock up, and we'll go and try it out. Oops, wrong one. So we're getting to the, this is really getting quite a kind of exciting end of the job now. With the nut fitted beautifully, ready to cut the nut slots. Now, how I work out the nut slots is I have a nut slot spacing rule here. I have a nut, in fact I have two of these. And what we do is we're looking at about 1/8 of an inch in, probably a little bit less. And we look for the two outside markers, which are that black line and that black line. And we line them up with the nut. And I mark them in, I've marked them in some black pen, look at that. You can see, so that is the centre of each hole. These get slightly closer together as you come this way because the strings here are thicker, but the centres are all lined up with this rule, and I think you'll see that those all line up there. And what I do is I don't use this to cut the slots anymore. They're decent files, but they're not brilliant, and what these tend to do is to cut a V more than the U shape we need for the actual string or the semicircle, especially on well, not on these strings, but on the higher two. So what I do is I use the thinnest one, which is here, and I just use this just to cut along these little lines I made, and that gives me a notch from a proper file. And I just check I'm square there, and that's it. I'm just going to put a notch in there, and I'm going to do it on each one. And that is the centre line for each of my strings. And the good thing about this nut is I've got it that high. If these aren't right, I can alter them again. I've left this one because I just thought that this is not quite spaced right. I'm going to do it by eye more than anything. And there you go, I'm going to take that. And that's it. And I've marked the 6 areas where I'm going to cut the strings. Now I don't need to see a line there, so if I wanted to I could just wipe those lines off because I'll show you how it's going to work. Don't need to see them because I've got a notch in there, and I will just take my correct file. Say for instance I cutted the 36, which is the 5th string. It's a 10, 46 set, 10, 13, 17, 26, 36, 46, and I just take my 36 file like so, and I just slide it along to that notch. Once I get that notch, that's my centre line. And that's it, and that's where I'm going to cut for that string. And that is a real string slot cut in the top of the nut. I've got a marker for each one. So say for instance I want to do the, say I want to do my 13, which is this one. Now I'm using these snazzy snowback holders, it stops them wobbling about. And I just slide along to my second string, which is my 13. And again, I'm just going to make the proper cut, the actual finished cut. And there you go, I have 2 slots now cut, one for the 36, one for the 13. And the string will fit that exactly. Now all I've got to do is cut it to the right depth. Now the depth will come later. So I'm ready to cut these nut slots, and in fact I am already, aren't I? I can take the 46 now, which is my low E or my 5th string. Now that doesn't sit in the knots too well, so I'd probably take something like, I'll come and take the, I'll take the 28, it's or the 26 should I say, and I'll just line that up and I'll just start it off, and then I can move to my 46, and you see I can start every nut slot off, and that's it now, everyone centre line, and it's going well. And I'm already cutting the nut slots, and we are making the nut. So the 26 is not a 26, it's a 28, it's the closest one. So it's a little bit wider than it needs to be, but that's fine, because I like them a little bit wider than they're supposed to be anyway. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to check how they look by eye, and they look fine to me. I've got the 16, 17 next. Now I don't have a 17 file, but I do have a 16. So we'll slide along to the 3rd string, which is normally a 17. It's a 16 with this. So what we'll do with this, we'll angle it. We'll angle it that way and make it that slot a little bit wider. So we're now cutting the slots. I've got one more to do, the 10. And there's a 10 again in a stewback holder. And the 10 is the finished string, and there we go, and it's there. Now when I get to these 2 middle ones, and these 2, I could angle them slightly toward the tuner, especially the middle 2, so I'll be looking at the 26 and the 16. There's a 46, there's a 26 or a 28. There's the 16, so the 16 I could, now I've got the knots where it wants to go, I'm just going to angle it across a little bit and aim it slightly toward. Because don't forget I'm going to remove the tops of these frets, these slots anyway, so I can just angle them a little bit more toward. As long as it's spacing at the front's okay, that's all that matters. So there you go, I've already started each slot, and it's now all about getting the right depth. So again, can really take my time with this. We're not going to cut them to the proper depth until we've got the strings on. But I can get close, and I sort of angle down slightly just to follow the angle, not quite the angle of the fall away on the headstock, because that goes down, I believe it's 14 degrees. I don't want to go too far. Now that is getting stuck in there, so that means if that's getting stuck, the string's going to get stuck, so I'm just going to pull it back. There you go, and that's nice. And that's getting to where it needs to be. Still way too high, which is fantastic. And I'll just take each file and work that slot. And I'm going to cut this straight, because I like actually having them straight. And angle slightly. The last couple of cuts just so it rolls over, and that's beautiful. And we're now cutting the nut proper. I'm going to keep these straight rather than angled. And what I'm doing with the file is now I'm holding it level with the neck, but making sure I don't cut into the frets, because if I do, I have to level and polish them again. When I just angle slightly down for the last couple of strokes, and that's looking beautiful. So these are coming on. And I'll move to the 36 and we'll cut that one a little bit lower. And when I get pretty close, I'll just put some strings on the guitar. But when I've done, I'll be finishing, I'll be carving the top of the nut again as well, because I'm going to need to remove material from there. 36 is still way too high. And sometimes I hold this in a vise, because it makes it a lot easier, but if you're steady, you can do it freehand, like I'm doing now. All those slots are looking wonderful. 46. So take your time with this. Measure 42 times if you have to, and cut once. This nut was a bind to install because taking the old one out was a nightmare. It smashed, it took chips of paint with it and all sorts, it took wood out, I had to rebuild the shelf. It's just the nature of the job, and that nut is looking marvellous. We're halfway there with that nut, so I'm going to work off camera for a short time, keep shaping and shaping. I'll move over to the other bench in a while, I'll carve some off the top, and I'll bring you back in when I'm close to having it where I need it to be, because we're going to have to sand the top using fine grit and sandpaper just to bring it up to a nice shine. So I'm going to be shaping this, but making sure the slots are deep enough to do the finishing. And I will bring you back in tomorrow, but very exciting. We're getting toward the end of this job now. Not the greatest view for you guys, but perfect placement for me. Now, with the nut, I've carved the nut slots. They're not to the proper depth right now, but they're getting pretty close to where I need them to be. In fact, they're very, very close. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shape the top of a nut, and it's going to take me a while. And I'm over at the other bench. You've seen this bench before, it's the old bench from the old place. And take the around the area. I've got a nice pot, always a pot underneath to catch the bone. I don't think I'm going to save it. I've got a bag of bone dust. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be shaping the nuts here. Now I normally take the camera and go put it on the floor and do it at this angle, facing this way, so we'll be able to, you know, facing that way there. But where the tripod is at the moment, that's the one place I always have it in the workshop as it is now. So everything's going to be filmed from that spot unless I need to go down to the other end. So most things are going to be filmed from here. It saves me having to move the camera and keep setting it up every time, and that saves me time. So what I'm doing is I'm rough shaping the top of the nut. I'm not too bothered about, like I say, just saving this dust. I've got plenty of bone dust in a bag. I'm rough shaping, and I'll fine shape with a better file a little bit later on. Just like to keep an eye on where I am. Because it's quite easy to take too much out, especially I've gone too heavy on that far side. I haven't gone too heavy yet, but I don't want to go any more on there. So I'm just going to try to rough shape the middle now. This is going really, really well. So yeah, so you lose the benefit of seeing me shape it like I used to in the past. That is going really well. So I'm going to crack on and get it done. You will see it from the other side a little bit later on. So I'll show you once I've got it into shape. But all I'm doing is I'm just rough shaping over the top. And once I get close to where I want to be, I'll come in with a smoother file. And I can hardly see. Yeah, I'm going to give this a little brush. You've all seen this before. My clothes brush. Had this years, and it's fantastic for getting right into the grooves, so you can see how much you've got left. And that's looking pretty close to where I need it to be. So that, my friends, is a good rough nut. I'm just going to, I'm only filing the far side now. And that's it. It's rough cut. I'm now going to go with a better, smoother file. My number 4 cut Swiss file, which you've all seen. And I'm going to basically just start now. I'm going to work now on the top. Well, I'm going to work on the whole nut, and I'm going to get it very close to final shape. I'm also going to come in on this back and just roll over. So I'm going to take my safe side here. I'm going to roll over just to give some roundness to the back of the nut. Get some sandpaper on there in a bit, just rounding it over. Keep checking and then I'm going to roll over the edges. So you're not seeing the intricacies of what I do, but you have seen it before. I will try and show you that at a later. In fact, I'll do a video on shaping a nut once it's on. I will move the camera for that one. From this angle you're getting a much better idea of how the nut is looking, and we are more or less final shaped. I'm still going to run through the correct file for each one, and I'll just slightly angle back. When I go across one, I will go with the file, well, just to widen the back slot, which we always do, well, we sometimes do, just to give that string a bit more room. So on the 36, we'll give it some 46. On the 26, we'll give it some 36 once I find the right file. So just follow it down, just to widen this edge here. It gives the string more room to move. And then we'll go the 26, we'll give that some, oh that is a 26, so the 26 we'll give it some on the 17, and so on and so forth. And the 16 we'll give a little bit on the 13, well it's a 17, we're using a 16 for a 17. And we'll do exactly the same on the 10, we'll just give it a little bit of 16 just to widen that just a little bit. And again, we're going to open up the slots. So we're going to take each one and just give it a little more. I've done the 46, we're going to do the 36. We'll not do the final depth of the slots until I've got the strings on. 13, you are here. Again, nice and steady. Just where have I put you? You are over here. So we're now ready to get the strings on. Well, I'm just going to look at the slots, and they all look fabulous. So the shape of the knot, I'm happy with the shape of the knot. Probably just take a little bit off that front edge there, because it's just a little bit not quite right between the A and the D. So I'm just going to take a little off the front, just shaping. Not really with anything significant, and that has just given it that nice shape. And the transition from the E to the A also, just on that front edge, and that's nice. If I had some lightly coloured sandpaper, I'd polish it off with sandpaper, but I don't have any light colour, I have the dark stuff, and that's just going to cack it all up. So I'm going to leave a nut, then we'll leave it like that. Looks really, really good, I'm happy with that. So we're now ready for strings. So very exciting guys, we are ready to string this guitar up proper. The strings I was using before to cut the knot were just a set of my own brand new strings, which I've now discarded. I'll save them for another project or one of my own guitars later. There you go. Aaron has sent a set of these. Dioderio nickel plated steel electric 1046s. Brand new in the pack. Brand new just coming out the pack, hopefully. Here you go. Well, I like that packet. It's got a thingy on, like a Ziploc type affair. That's very nice. That's probably what I paid extra £3 for. So we're going to string it up. You probably don't need to see this. I've spent a lot of time on this today. I've spent probably 4 hours on it, and all I've really done is cut the knot and polished it up, oiled the fingerboard and blah blah blah, what have you. This guitar, I don't know how many hours it's had. It's had a lot more hours than I've charged for. Many more. Well, I did refret it. I ended up refretting it twice because the first refret, the tangs were too long, and it's something that took me caught by surprise. But you know, hey ho, these things happen. So I ended up refretting it twice. Now these frets have gone in a lot better. We got rid of all the sharp edges. No sharp edges on there. There was some just a little bit. I had a little problem with getting the radius to go right over the edge of the binding, because the binding had been sort of cut that way a bit and that way, so a little bit more, so I had to tamp over the edges a bit more. It's been a bit difficult to get it right, but I've got it all nice and smooth now. The only thing I'm not completely happy with on this guitar is, and it's my fault, where I cut through the binding with the saw, which when you're recutting slots and trying to get them deep enough, it's so difficult to not cut through, because you're going in between that binding and that binding. And I'm in a few spaces, and there are a few, they're only a millimetre, there's about 4 of them on the whole neck that I've cut through about a millimetre in height. You can just, if you really look, you can see the specks are a bit dark. I've tried filling them in with coloured epoxy, and the epoxy just won't take. So I've had to leave it. But end of the day, it's cosmetic, and it is not a big deal. And the thing is, end of the day, they tell a story, don't they? you know, these things. I'll try and show them you a little bit later, but all being well, Aaron's not going to be too peed off about it. You know, it does happen. It's an old guitar, but you know, it does happen. Anyway, let's get all these strings really nice and silky. They are nice. Anyway, you'll see if you're looking at the nut, it is polished up, and it's really, really superbly shaped. It's a fabulous shape. Now I've left the truss rod cover on. I'm going to remove it in a second because I've still got to slightly lower these slots in the nut. The nut is beautiful, but I'm really pleased with that nut. And the areas where I've repaired on the edge of a nut each side, because it did chip. It was an absolute bind to get out. It was terrible. And when we've got that much glue on them and you try and get them out, they do lift wood with them, and they do lift a little bit of the edge of the lacquer and a bit of the paint. But I have basically filled this with coloured epoxy. I've made it all. I've remade the shelf. Don't forget, this also had a really horrible shim underneath, which was a nightmare to get at. But we've got it all beautiful under. It looks fantastic. So I'm sure Aaron's going to be fine and pleased with that. But anyway, let's get these strings on, shall we? Let's keep going. Great guitar. It does. The great thing about this guitar is it has nicks and dings and dongs and knocks here and there, so you know, a couple of blemishes on there. End of the day, you're gonna, when you have so much work on a guitar like this, you're gonna have the odd nick here and there. But I'm not saying it adds to it. What I'm saying is it doesn't do anything bad to the guitar. Anyway, let's get these strings on nice. Lovely strings. I've never used these strings myself. I've just gone with regular. I've always used just regular strings. Except for on my acoustic. I wonder if I should do a wrap over the top. Should I? Should I not? That's OTT, and that is hopefully underneath. That's good. Try and get it underneath if I can. Yeah, that's better. I've got one over the top, one going under. I do love, I've said it so many times, I do love to put wraps around poles. Now there's too many wraps there. I thought it was being a bit blasé. Let me just pull that string through a tad more. And we'll go there. Shall we go there? The string is staying there. There we go. That's better. These are, we don't have a lot of stem to wrap round, and I do like to wrap downwards, not upwards. I could have done the first one over thinking about it in hindsight, but anyway, I'm going to leave that truss rod cover on for now until I've got the slots cut right. Then I'll take it back off again because we may need to alter the truss rod. Best text Aaron and see what tuning he wants. We're probably setting it up in E standard, then he comes back and says I want it in drop to semitone. I can ask him shortly. So there you go. So I'm just going to nip off. Got one good wrap round the E, two good wraps around the A, and I'm gonna. These are very nice. They're very silky. Are they different, or am I just thinking they're different? Right, there's no nickel in them, is there? They're steel. So let's go with the high E and the B, because that helps me to set the bridge at this end. Don't forget, we're setting this up as we go along. Now I've more or less got the stop tailpiece set. You want this set so it's high enough that the strings, as they come over the bridge, we don't hit the top of the bridge. So we have raised it both sides, just a little. But we're going to check again. We're going to check the height of the bridge shortly, just to make sure we're fine. And we'll check everything at the 12th fret because the nut slots are just about finished, just about cut. Now, when it comes to the high E, I like to bend string, and I like to double it back 180 degrees and give it something to lock onto. And look at that, that's a lovely, I don't know if you can see, I hope you can see from there, it's a lovely 180 degree there, and that will, when we pull that back, it will lock. And that is the way I do it. And then I'm going to just, however many wraps this is going to give me, I'm going to wrap and wrap and wrap. And I may not be able to get all of these underneath, so if it gets a little bit untidy, it's just the way it is. But I've got 2 over the top, and now I'm going to go back down to the base. And I'm going to cross over and I'm going to pull it right round. And there you go. And the rest I'm going to have to wrap. So I've probably got too many wraps here, but you know what? I don't mind having too many wraps around a post. I'm a big fan of wraps around posts, me. You all know that. I don't know how long this video is, it's going to be a long one. My longest is 3 hours and 47 minutes. What an epic guitar that was. I do believe that was a 1972 Gibson Les Paul Custom I did for Dave Evans' dad. Dave Evans brought it down. Man of faith like me. And what a great guy he is. I'm still in touch with him. Still message each other now and again. In fact, to be honest, he messages me more than I message him, so it's my turn to drop him a message this week. Intonation's not quite right on that one. Tiny bit flat. Let's try the A. Tiny bit sharp. You don't set the intonation anyway until you've stretched the strings, and I've not stretched them in yet. The E is very close. It is a Nats sharp. Put flat on the E there, so we'll get that all sorted out in a short while. Get the strings on. I bet I hope this is interesting for you guys. I'm putting strings on a guitar. There's nothing interesting about it, really. I'm just making this video a bit longer. I do have quite a bit of editing to do on this before I complete the video. So far I've got 38 pieces of video to edit. So far this one will be about 40, 41, 42. And there's a couple of pieces I've got it because I did a refret and it didn't come out right. I'm going to re-edit it. I'm going to cut some of those bits out because they don't all need to be there. I mean, I could make it long and didn't leave it all in, but I don't like leaving it in when it's going to be cut out, and I'll just say, look, I did the refret, it wasn't very good, and blah 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 blah. Anyway, whatever, we'll see. You'll soon find out. How many of you watch the full videos, by the way? I tell you what, not many of you do. If I put a 1 hour video out, I bet you people only watch about 12 minutes of it, and that's a bit annoying. But for those of you that do stay and do watch the videos, brilliant, because it makes me money. And I appreciate it. And I appreciate the likes and the subscribes and whatever. But to say I've got 10,000 viewers, 10,000 subscribers, my channel is not doing very well at all. I get hardly any likes, I get hardly any views. If something happened last year with YouTube, it changed their algorithms or something. I was getting nigh on 300, 400 new subscribers a month, and I'm making good money off it. And now I'm down to, something happened and I started only getting 100 subscribers a month. And my videos weren't being watched. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's because I didn't pay for their Premiere, whatever. But basically my channel died on its arse. And it's been like it ever since, for a year. And it's took me 10 months to get up to about, I should have made 10,000 last October, and I got there I believe I got here in August this year. So something went wrong there. But anyway, and I know I say videos are for the client, and they are for the client and me, but it's great that I can make a little bit of extra money off of videos, so I would like it to grow again. It'd be fantastic. But anyway, just gravy. I'm just babbling, trying to keep you interested while I put strings on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to get the other 2 middle strings on. I'm going to stretch the strings in, then we're going to look at getting the setup done and the nut slots cut all at the same time. How's that for you? half a step down. So I'm just setting the intonation. Seeing where we are with that. A bit flat on the high E, so we're going to move the saddle toward the neck. If it's flat, you go left with the saddle as you look at it this way. If it's sharp, you go right. Left and flat 4 letters, right and sharp 5 letters. It's almost foolproof. So we're going to set the intonation first. That's nice. Still need to finish the nut slots, remember, but we're very close to where we need to be. Tiny bit sharp on the B. So we're just going to bring the saddle toward me, which is to the right as I look at it. That slot needs cutting right, it's not right. Nice. Might hear a motorbike revving up outside, it's idiots in Kirkby Nashfield. At the main lights as well, that is. That's nice. Nice. So the A is sharp, considerably sharp as well, so we're going to move the saddle again to the right, quite a bit as well. Still a little bit sharp. Strange one, this one. The saddles are don't seem to be where they ought to be, according to what I know. Let's see. I've got a Korg DTR 1000 Pro tuner, a rack tuner on the bench just here. So it's very accurate. That's good. And the E, or E flat. Can't tune to E flat, we'll try D sharp, how's that? Perfect, so we've got the intonation all done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check the amount of relief first. Let's get the right scale length. So I would like to see 0.2 millimeters, around about the 5th or 6th fret. I have a feeler gauge here. Grab a 0.25 and see where we are. 0.25. Oh, too low. Too low, that's good. So we need to slightly tweak truss rod. I'm going to let a little bit of steam off there. So now I'm going to remove the truss rod cover again. Remember, this neck came in bent with a little twist. So we have to get it straight first. So we're going to look for the correct wrench for a Gibson guitar. Did I pull them out somewhere? We'll find out. I think I might have done, you know. What have we done with them now? La-di-da-di-da, here we are. I've got them out. Now I've got a nice little racking system unit here, and it's emptied 2 drawers over there, which has given me more space for the tools I like to get to hand. But all my little bits and bobs and knickknacks are now in this fantastic drawer. It's got 30 small drawers and 9 quite large drawers, and they're brilliant. Anyway, let's get the right one. So it's saying 8mm for a Gibson, is that right? This should be the one then, because I think this is one I got off an edge. So we're going to just slacken off the truss rod just to gnats. And there you go, that was about, what, an 1/8 or a 1/6 of a turn there. Let's have a look, let's settle a second or two and we'll have another look. We're tight under the 7th. We're tight under the 5th, crikey me. So we do need to let it off a little bit more. That's good. That's better. Okay, we're going to come back a little bit. So I'd say we'll probably knock that off a 1/4 of a turn, which is fabulous. That's a 0.25. Still want to come back just a little bit. Like about 0.2, round about the 6th fret. So that feels pretty good to me. So I'm liking that. That'll settle for another short while. I'm going to measure the height above the 12th fret. But also checking these, because we can still bring these down a little bit more. I did bring them close, but I didn't finish them off. I've finished the shape of the nut. The nut looks fabulous. Okay, so this side we're saying 2 mil. Yeah, we're saying 2 mil on the bass side, and we're saying what about 1.7 on the treble side. What we're going to do is, I mean, I'm quite happy with that for now. I'm going to bring it lower shortly, but what we're going to do is we're going to check the height above the 1st fret of the strings, and we're going to finalise these nut slots. Now, I don't really want to get any in, so it's not going to hurt if we get some in there. It's not going to harm anything. Now my next settle, let's first check the amount of relief again. We've done the intonation. The height at the 12th fret is pretty much bang on. We're going to get it a little bit lower in a while. Okay, that's all right. 0.25 at the 5th. About 0.27 at the 7th. So I'm just going to, again, just a very small tweak. Just straighten it up a little bit less relief, and that's it. That's as much as I'm going to do. And I think that's going to be just about right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the nut slots first. Again. So I don't want a 0.25, and I want a 0.3. Now these measurements, by the way, when I finish off, I'm going to want this about 1.75 millimeters above the 12th fret on the bass side and 1.5 mil on the treble side. That's the gap from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string. I'm going to grab me a 0.3, if I can find one. There will be one. Used it before, you know. And I could go lower than 0.3 on the bass and 0.2 on the treble, but they are a nice setting. So let's see where we are. Oh, we can go down a fair bit there. Okay, so nice and steady. What I don't want to do is go too deep. Now I've cleaned these files off camera, and we're just gonna get in a nice straight line, making sure we don't scratch the frets. And we don't want to go mental, so we're just gonna nice and steady, like I say, and an angled one just at the end, just so the string rolls over, you know, because we've got the knot rolled back or angling back down toward the headstock, so we'll like to do the same with the string. So tuned in at pitch with 1. We know we've carved material away because it's flattened the note. And we are going to check. Should we go a little bit more? And this is going to take me a while. I was going to do this in the morning. He's coming to fetch the guitar tomorrow. But I've been here since 11 o'clock. It's now 20 past 6. And all I've really done is this one. I've done a little bit of work in the other room. But I've really took my time with this today. little things I've done off camera, like gone off with some micro mesh and just filed down the edges of these frets at the edge. The fret bit right up to the edge of the binding, so you can just feel them. If you really felt for them pressed in, you can feel them, but when you're playing, you're not going to feel them. So we're just going to, that's just good enough. Oh, it's more than good enough, it's brilliant, but it's all about the player and what the player thinks. I'm happy with that. Just buzzing. Just buzzing on there. I'm going to try 25 under the A string, because I think the A string, I did do most of them anyway. Let's get a 25 under there. If it's just buzzing, we'll leave it, because I need this to be 0.3, 0.28, 0.26, 0.24, 0.22, 0.2. That's how we're going to. Can definitely go a little bit lower with the A. Good, because it was not sounding right. So let's just give that a brush and clean. We'll get the 46 away. Could go lower all of it. I mean, I could get down to about 0.15 on all of them if I wanted to, but don't need to go that low. What I don't want to do is go too low, because I don't want to replace the nut at this stage. The original was a nightmare to get out now, to do a lot of rebuilding underneath it. So I certainly don't want this one to come out. I can take this away, and if he doesn't like anything about it, he can bring it back and I'll sort it out. Do the rest off camera, then we'll come back and we'll do the final setup. Hi friends, we are all done with this guitar, and I do believe it's a 2005 custom. I think it is. And yeah, came in, it had a bent twisted neck which we've sorted out. We've replaced all, we're not going to replace all the electrics, we've replaced the pickups with some Joe Bonamassa Custom, over 500 quid a set. We've straightened the neck, we've refitted a nut. No mean feat, because it did break all of the edges of the guitar and this side. Now, if you look there, look, it just looks perfect. It's all been matched up. I did use a bit of trickery, and I used some stained epoxy to fill in the bits of the guitar body that had been damaged. And we've given it a refret, and all in all, I mean, I gave it 2 refrets, because the first refret, the tangs were too long for the wood or for the fingerboard, and I had to recut the fingerboard and get some fret wire from America. I had to buy it by the pound, which it cost me quite a lot. It cost me about 85 quid. So that's cost me. But yeah, a lot of work. I've charged a set price of it, £350. In hindsight, £450 would have been closer to the mark, but hey ho, no big deal. I'm quite happy with what I've charged for this. I just hope that the player or the owner likes it as much as I do. Really nice guitar, lovely refret. We now have a straight neck. I should be charging £250 to straighten a neck, but I didn't. And there you go, what a lovely guitar. It's got dings and dongs and nicks and scratches, and I'm sure that just adds to it. But the owner is on the way to pick it up, so I'm hoping he's happy with it. I'm sure he will be. I played it last night, put it in. It sounds fantastic, it plays fantastic, and it looks fantastic. So that is another one finished. The owner has waited a long time for it. I was close for 8 months, I've really not been well. So it's been here since July, but not this July, last July. So it's been here a while, and I'm sure I'll be really happy to get this back. He says, I bet you'll be happy to see the back of it. I says, no, not really. I says, it's been a great project. I'm loving that nut I've cut on there. Let me just show you the nut. Hopefully you can see it from there. Beautifully cut nut and polished. But that is it. Until next time. So as always, just before I go, remind you my website, facebook.com/ng17. That's facebook.com/NGONESEVEN. I'm Victor. I am your fret friend. Until next time, as always, God bless you. Be good to each other. I'll see you in the next one.